Hi, I'm Ashley Adamson, and this one is a topic that was brought up by one of you, and I wanted to go into it because I think it's really important. And I think anyone can benefit from this who's transitioning, which is transitioning when you don't have a means of actually physically, externally transitioning through like actually showing yourself as who you are or taking hormones, that kind of stuff. And anyone who is transitioning will benefit from this because even if you are able to take hormones or do things to change yourself, there is an internal aspect that I'm going to talk about. And this internal aspect is for everyone. So yeah, let's talk about transitioning when you can't transition externally. So first of all, this is a really hard situation because not only are you trans, which is a hard situation to be in to start with, but now you're in a situation where you know you're trans and you can't do much to change around you to reflect who you are. It's super hard because it means you're going to continue to get misgendered. It means you're going to continue to know that you're kind of stuck in a position where you're not able to be authentically you. And the more time that you spend in this place, the more you're going to feel this disconnect with the version of you that is in the outside and the version of you that's in the inside. And I speak to this because I've gone through that experience for some time, for a few years, and it was really, really hard. I eventually found my way out, and hopefully I think that's something that you should make a priority, is finding your way out to a place where you can be authentically who you are in the external world. And I just want to just give a big hug and shout out to people who are stuck right now in a place where they can't transition. I should also mention this for the younger transitioners or people who do want to transition who are stuck with their parents and feel like they can't transition because their parents are not going to accept them. Totally valid. I got that call a lot on the trans lifeline. And here's what I would say to you, and here's what I said to them, which is, okay, first of all, it's not a forever thing, okay? I understand that it seems like it's forever because the only world that you know is the world living with your family, and you're still young enough where like you haven't really spent much time developing as an adult. Yeah, it may seem like you have and you may feel like an adult, but until you're 18 you can't leave really your parents' household, and I wouldn't recommend doing it unless it's dangerous for you now. But if you're having a hard time being at home, learn that time is on your side. Time is your biggest resource. You will eventually get out of your parents' home. It will take time. Be patient. Work through that. You can do it. I didn't transition until I was 32. All right? I was well out of my parents' home by then. Jesus. And you know what? I don't think I could have transitioned at home at like 16 or at the age of 12 when I first started realizing things. If I had transitioned at home at 12, I think my stepdad would have like really flipped out because there was, being trans back then was a very different topic. It was very taboo, and he'd probably be super pissed about the fact that one of the kids is going off on this path where he has no vision for potential success, and it's going to be like kind of almost like treating me like I'm like suddenly like disabled or something, but by choice. And being trans is not a choice, but you know how they go, how these people see things. And so I don't know if I would have been able to safely transition. Now that I'm out of the house and I have income, I have my own success and my own way of living, he's totally cool with it. Totally cool with it. And so I don't think I could have transitioned any other way safely than to transition later. I was repressed though, so I there were a lot of things that worked through there. But anyways, that's something to think about, is time. Time is your biggest resource in figuring out how to get to a place where you can transition externally. Set that as a part of your mind. Like, is there a way you can change things? Now, I know some of you have written me and you're like in places where it's not safe, like Russia, for example. I have seen some people who have transitioned in Russia, but it's like they are absolutely beyond passing. They're like 10 out of 10 gorgeous. Like, that seems like the only possible route for externally transitioning. I don't know. But realize that here's the thing. We're done with that topic. Here's the thing. The internal process. This is the most important process with any transition. How has that been for you, by the way? Like, where are you in your internal process, and how much have you noticed the changes when looking back at your internal processing? Because that's probably the bigger part of your transition. Yeah, the external part helps, but it's really just a hack to get into the internal part that you may not be able to find any other way. And if you're in a world where you can't externally validate yourself, then find the ways in which you can trigger those internal growths and developments that can help you feel more accepting of yourself. Because there's one thing, which is just accepting your trans identity, but then there's another thing, which is just accepting your disposition. If you are in a place where you can't safely transition, can you accept that? Can you accept that you are someone else that is not being seen right now, and can you work with that? How can you work with that? What can you do to work with that if you can't just leave the situation or get yourself out of there? I imagine like there is probably a place somewhere in East, probably like there's plenty of places in Asia, in China, or most of the world where it's not safe to be trans, where you're kind of forced to continue to be what you're expected to be as a man. And if I was in this situation, I would probably focus on reconciling my identity and at the same time reconciling my disposition. How can I do things that give me a sense of freedom in the place that I'm stuck that can help be a form of therapy? Is it watching these videos? Is it joining online groups where I'm completely anonymous? Is it just painting one of my nails a different color, maybe even like a skin tone color so people barely even notice it or never notice it? Is it just changing my underwear or like my socks? What is it that I can do that gives me control, gives me a feeling of control over my situation, so that way I can feel like I have control and that I have a path for celebrating myself? I remember talking to one person on the Trans Lifeline where I recommended something because they were talking about how they did art and how they could continue to express their fantasy self in their art. And this is maybe something that you can do is just like, like a journal. Like, can you write in it? Can you put something in there that gives you a sense of freedom? Can you write it to yourself? This is what I would do. Like, what can you do for yourself that is a gift, a gesture that enables you to feel more happy in who you are and to feel more accepting? Like, no one's controlling you when you're going to bed. You can meditate, you can dream, you can imagine, you can write in your journal, or you can just draw in your journal or do things that are symbolic of gestures for you. I think that's the biggest thing, is finding kind of like the secret writing. Like, how can you do the secret writing for yourself to acknowledge who you are? Because if no one else is going to acknowledge it, you got to do it, and you have to be proactive in it. I mean, like brushing your teeth, like not like, oh, when it's like feeling really, 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 really bad, I need this. No, like you need to do this continuously because you're continuously experiencing not being in the person that you know you are and not being validated. You need to continue to shave away those layers to get yourself out of emotional debt and to move yourself into a place where you can feel okay. Do you know those moments where you realize that you haven't been processing something and you've just put it on the shelf, and something will just like break your shelf, or something will set you off that's small, and then suddenly you have all this huge emotional baggage or feelings or experiences coming out? That can throw you off a lot. And I think that's kind of the thing you want to like work to avoid, because that's when you start getting like really bad feelings. That's when it really starts to hurt. And I have like, thought about like terrible things for myself. And I don't want you to be there. And it's a really hard place to be. I've been there before. And I mean, let's talk about that. Let's talk about when you go into those really like hard places where you can't avoid feeling like you're in the pit of despair, right? Like, what does that feel like? It feels like to me a pit of despair. What does it feel like to you? Do you get that sense of feeling like gravity is weighing down on you? Do you feel like there's darkness? Do you feel like there's no hope? Do you feel like you just can't do anything? That you're never going to be anything, or that you're never going to be valid, or that you're never going to be accepted? You're never going to, you can't envision success for yourself. There's like all of these nevers for me, where suddenly my whole like idea of my destiny is flipped, and that my destiny is now just like this terrible destiny. And I let that feeling happen. But as that feeling happens, I cry, and I allow that feeling to move through me, and I don't attach. This is the key. When you're feeling terrible and you're feeling all these terrible feelings, it doesn't mean it's you. It doesn't mean that these terrible things, these voices, these negative voices, all of these things, it doesn't mean it's you, and it doesn't mean it's true. That's so important. That's something that is a mindfulness technique that in Buddhism and in just mindfulness meditation you work on. You're not your thoughts. You are an observer of your thoughts. But if you're not conscious of your thoughts and you just act on them, then you always are your thoughts, because you just act on your thoughts. But that's not even true, because you have thoughts sometimes where you're like, that's not a good thought, I don't want to do that. And you don't. But do you judge yourself for that thought that's not good? Do you say, oh, I'm a bad person for having that thought? Because if you do, now you're associating yourself with that thought. You're saying, I'm a bad person for having that thought, because that thought is mine and I am responsible for my thoughts. No, you're not responsible for your thoughts. If you could be responsible for your thoughts, you would have to be fully capable of generating your thoughts. And you're not. Your body is a whole operating system. Your mind is in certain states. You're getting all sorts of inputs from society and the world that's causing you to change and perceive things differently. You're not responsible for your thoughts. You are responsible for how you act on your thoughts. And that is key in understanding your own, in creating a personal protection for yourself when you're dealing with this really dark stuff. Not being responsible for your thoughts, recognizing, noticing thoughts, behaviors, and patterns, and then taking a step back later and changing that, that's a great thing. But when you're in the thick of it, when shit is coming at you and you're hearing and feeling terrible things, it's okay. It's okay. Allow yourself to move through it. I don't mean allow yourself to embody it, but allow yourself to move through it. It's a really strange analogy, but you know when you're pooping? To get the poop out, you need to poop. And the poop is in your body, and you need to kind of, this is such a weird analogy, kind of express it through your body. And in that moment when you're expressing, you are in a very different state where you're kind of experiencing your poop in a way that you normally don't want to think about. And then the poop's out and you're done. And you're no longer a part of the story with that poop anymore. This is such a ridiculous analogy. But do you get what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, when you're experiencing these negative thoughts, it's kind of like you're pooping. You gotta like feel the experience of going through that, to poop it out, to let it go, to let it out. And if you haven't done this in a long time, if you haven't been brushing your teeth, there's going to be a lot of that, and it's going to feel pretty overwhelming. So I suggest you don't try to do all of it in one session. Just do it in bits and pieces if it's that large. But I've had some pretty big reckonings in the darkness, feeling like at the bottom of a hole of despair. It's been pretty bad. And so when you're in those situations, like learn to kind of move through these things. Like it's just a part of the pooping process. Yeah, so to kind of recap some of the main points is like find the secret writing for yourself. I think that's a great one. When you're at the bottom, like understand it's kind of like a pooping process and you got to let yourself kind of poop it out. And one of the earlier ones, what did we touch on? Like time. Time is on your side. Bide your time. Play the long game. Don't try to win the short game, because the short game is going to lead you to frustration. It's going to make you feel like you're not making progress, and that's going to make you feel like you're shit, and you're going to feel down on yourself. And then you're going to go back to that other place where you're going to need to poop more. I love this analogy. What do you think of it? Yeah, I think those are kind of like the really important ones. Wherever you are in life, I really hope that you're able to kind of work through these things. And shout out to my patrons for supporting me and making these videos. If you'd like to support me as well, you can hop over to my Patreon and buy me a cup of tea, or if you want, join my live Q&A, or join my monthly meditation session. I offer those, and your support means so much for me, because it means that I'm doing something that is right for the world and that other people are seeing value in. So if you want to support another trans person in helping her with her trans business or trans creationship or whatever, please consider supporting me. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever you are. Sending you big hug. Love you. See you in another episode. Bye.